Hello, thank you for coming along today. We are holding these sessions for tenants alongside the annual rent consultations to explain how we, the Highland Council, set our rent charges. We'll start off with a bit of background. How we manage our housing revenue account. The housing revenue account, or HRA as we call it, is the account where all your money goes into and where all the costs of running the housing service come out of. The Housing Scotland Act in 1987 sets out the requirements for councils to keep a separate account in relation to their housing stock. This separate account is called the Housing Revenue Account, the HRA. The Act specifies that a local authority can charge to its HRA and what income can be credited to it. There is strict legislation around what tenants' rent money can be spent on. HRA assets must be used to benefit existing or prospective council tenants. The Scottish Government published further guidance on how to manage the HRA in 2014. Guidance on the operation of local authorities' housing revenue accounts, HRAs, in Scotland. This guidance is a 55-page document which is available on the Scottish Government website. I can email copies out to anybody who would like one. The Social Housing Charter further strengthens the legislation and is a legal requirement as well as good practice for landlords to consult with their tenants around rent setting. The money coming into the HRA is for your rent, for other rents, which is garages and garage sites, other income, which is customer recharges and previous tenant arrears, interest on revenue balances, which is the Council Loans Fund Act, as an internal banker and pays interest where it is utilised in any internal credit balances. Effectively, interest on revenue balances is the interest which would have been received if the money was held at an external bank. And it has no council tax. Tenants who receive housing benefit or universal credit housing cost element are still paying their rent. They are claiming a benefit to help them do so. On this slide is the actual income from 2020 to 2021. It shows house rents, other income, interest on revenue balances and gross income. What does my rent pay for? Your rent goes towards loan charges. This is the cost of borrowing for capital improvements and new build houses, much like a mortgage or a home improvement loan. CFCR. This is a balancing figure. Any excess in the HRA goes towards additional capital works and reduces borrowing requirement. This slide shows a graphical representation of the money going out of the HRA. The largest outgoings are on loan charges and repairs. In 2020 to 2021, we spent £6.89 million on capital programme across the Highlands. This was considerably less than had been budgeted for, but the pandemic meant that most of the capital contracts had to be halted. These are now have been restarted and will complete in 2021 to 2022. This is mainly funded by prudential borrowing and paid for by the HRA within loan charges. Well spotted to anybody who noticed that actually 2020 to 2021 we took in more money than we spent. Normally the expenditure for the HRA will match the income to the HRA, with any small variance, underspent, going to the capital funded from current revenue, to reduce borrowing on capital projects. But 2020 to 2021 was not a normal year. 2 lockdowns meant that both new build programmes and capital programmes stopped and started numerous times, affecting both the HRA income and expenditure. When we set budgets for forthcoming year, we look at previous year spend, current year spend, current inflation rate, any known costs expected, i.e. pay rise legislative work to be carried out, This will allow us to calculate how much income we require to maintain services. This is a very challenging year for setting budgets. As mentioned before, we carried forward an underspend on capital projects. The impact of both the pandemic and Brexit has led to an increase in the cost of materials. Our half-year spend for 2021 to 2022 is currently on budget when you take into account the brought forward underspend from last year. Inflation rates are higher than they have been for many years. Known costs include an expected 2% pay rise for public sector workers. LD2 fire safety works are still to be completed. We then look at expected income, rental income from existing properties, expected rental income from new build properties, and any other income. We are fairly confident at estimating our rental income for 2022 to 2023. New build programmes are back on track, though we are experiencing some delays from material shortages, but these have been taken into account. Once we have all this information, it allows us to calculate how much income is needed to meet the requirement expenditure. This gives us, as a percentage of current income, the base for our rent increase proposals. Over the past few years, we have also offered an option for a slightly higher increase to allow us to invest further in environmental improvements in our estates. On this slide, you will see the calculations. The expected income for 2022 to 2023, this is based on current rent, and the budget expenditure for 2022 to 2023. There's a deficit of 0.48 million. This means that to maintain the levels of service and deliver the agreed capital improvements programme, we need to increase our income by 0.48 million. We have two proposals. The first will balance the books and give us enough revenue to deliver housing services and complete the capital improvement work that we have committed to. The second will give us a bit extra to invest in more cyclical maintenance work. It is really important that we get the opinion of as many tenants as we possibly can, so please take part in the consultation. Everyone who takes part will be entered into a prize draw to win a £50 shopping voucher. To take part in the consultation, all you need to do is select one of the following ways to respond. If you are unable to respond using any of these options, please call 078 56 957 056 to speak to somebody about the rent consultation. Thank you for listening.